Hey guys, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to use a tattoo Photoshop action. So what the Photoshop action does, it takes your original photo and will convert it into this kind of effect. So this is the first example I worked through, and I'll put a link down to this photo below if you want to follow along. Next, I'll open up this photo and recreate this. Third example, we'll go from this to this, so more of like a silhouette effect. And in the last example, I'll work with this photo and recreate this. Alright, I'll show you a few more examples of the effect and then we'll jump into Photoshop. Alright, let's head on into Photoshop. So first we want to make sure your file is all set up correctly to run the action. And the first thing you want to check here is the size of your photo, because this step is very important. So if you go to image size, what you want to do is scale either the width or height, whatever dimension is higher, to anywhere between say 3500 pixels to 5000 pixels. So the larger your photo, the more detail you're going to get into your design. So what I'm going to do is just scale the height here to say 4200, hit enter to confirm that. Okay, so now I've scaled it up, I'm going to get a lot more detail into my final result. Next, what I'm going to do is just crop this image in a bit. You don't need to do this step. I'm just going to get rid of some space here on the left, so I'm just going to hit C, that'll activate the crop tool, and I'm just going to drag this in, hit enter. Alright, so next what we need to do is load up the brushes that were included in the download. So if you just hit B, that will activate the brush tool, or make sure that it's selected over here, brush tool. Then what you want to do is right click over your photo. That'll bring up the brushes panel. Okay, now if you click on this icon here, this will bring up the drop down menu. Now I'm using Photoshop CC 2018 now, and this menu set has changed a bit. Okay, if you're using CC 2017 or below, you'll just need to click on the same icon and select load actions or replace actions. Probably just select load actions, as that will import the brushes into your existing stack of brushes that are already in the panel. But if you're on CC 2018 now, you just need to select import brushes and select the tattoo brushes file. Okay. Now with CC 2018, when you import brushes, they come inside a named folder now, which is much better for organization. So if you're working with multiple actions and multiple brush sets, they're all going to be in their own, contained in their own folder. So it's much needed to work with. Okay, so when you've loaded up the brushes, just click away from the panel, hit B to still activate the brush tool, and you want to make sure that your settings are shown like mine above here. So opacity 100%, you want to make sure these icons here are turned off, okay, and flow is at 100%, okay. Now the next step is to hit Y on the keyboard. That will activate the Art History Brush tool. Just make sure that the Art History Brush tool is selected, not the History Brush tool. So select that and make sure your settings are like mine at the top here. Now if you're using CC 2018, you don't actually need to worry about checking these settings anymore, because when I create brushes in CC 2018, it actually records these settings now. So if you're using CC 2017 or below, you need to make sure these settings are correct. Most importantly, that the style is set to loose medium for this action. These two numbers are flexible, and I'll explain to you how they affect the outcome of your design during the action. Okay, so just make sure those are all set up correctly. And the next step is to load up the action. So if we go to Window, Actions, okay, it'll pop up to the side here. I've already got it loaded there. I'm just going to delete that so I can show you how to load it up. So the Actions panel will show up to the side here. Click on this icon and go to Load Actions. Select Tattoo by 7 Styles, and that will pop up here. Okay. So when you've loaded up the action, it will come inside this folder here, Tattoo by 7 Styles. So just twirl that folder open to reveal the main action here, which is tattoo. All these actions here, you don't need to touch those, and I've just got in brackets here as a reminder, don't touch. So this is the main action that we want to play. This action here, create transparent background, that will just create a transparent background for our final design. So I'll show you how that works. Okay, and what you can't do is also rename this folder here. If you rename that folder, then the action just won't work at all. Okay, so this is the action that we're interested in playing, tattoo. So what you can do is just select that and click play. Okay, and in a few moments we're going to get a pop-up window, and it's going to allow us to paint over our photo, which will be the area that will convert into the design. So this is the message that will pop up. All these details here are just for your reference, but I'm going to explain what to do in this step. So all you need to do is when this message pops up, click stop. Okay, and you'll notice that the action is stopped. And what you want to do now is start clicking and painting over your photo. And you can see that it will start creating these loops. Okay, and you can see how it's tracing over our photo. I've just kept a subtle amount of visibility in your photo in the background here. It's just for your reference as you click over your photo. So you can click, or you can click, hold and drag to speed it up a bit. So, and as you can see, as I'm clicking away, it's creating these loops, right? And if I just bring up the design reference here, so you can see how all these shapes are created in the end result. So these are the loops that you can see here, right? So what you want to do is, we don't have to do it, you can if you want, but you can just click around your image to close off those loops where you want. Now what you don't want to do is click, hold and drag, or click in the one area too much. So if I click, hold and drag in this area a lot, you'll see that it's getting very dark. And that's just going to create a bit of a messy area in the end result, okay? It's going to create too many dark sort of crevices between the texture, between these shapes here, okay? So try to keep it consistent in the area, in the sort of density that you brush, okay? So I'm just going to click down here, okay, and I'll click up here. Or down here. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Now I'll talk to you a bit more about what these two numbers here do. So if I just go back some steps, I'm just going to undo that. Control Alt Z to do that. So I'm going to undo a few steps here. Now if currently the area is set to 400 pixels. So that is the total area that's going to be applied, 400 pixels when I click around here. So I'll undo that again. Now if I change to say 22, it's only going to cover a very small area. So see that there? So it's going to take a bit longer. You can still click, hold and drag to speed that up. But you know, by default, I've just set it to 400 pixels, but you can change that to whatever you want. It goes up to 500. Okay, I'll do that. Tolerance is one that you definitely want to play around with. So I'm just going to undo, let's go back further. Okay, so by default, tolerance is set at 100. If I change this to, Y, bring that back up. If I bring that to 0 and start brushing, you'll notice that the loops are much closer together. So you're going to get a lot of sort of smaller shapes in your end result. So I'll change this back to 100 and then click again. You'll see that the loop's a bit bigger. 0, much closer together. So you compare, the left here is tolerance of 100. The right is tolerance 0. So you can definitely experiment with that, okay? Just by default, I've just set to 100. But those two, definitely play with those. So I'm just going to go around and fill this image in again. And if you accidentally click away from this tool, okay, so if you, say if I hit B for example, and you want to get back to using the appropriate tool, you need to hit Y. Okay, that is Art History Brush, and that is the tool for this step. Okay. Alright, so I'm happy with that. So when you've painted over your photo, all you need to do is click play. Okay, and that's all you need to do. So the action is now going to run through to the end. So I'll just speed up the video and I'll jump to the end result. Alright, the action is finished and here's the result. So what you want to do first is just collapse the tattoo action that is twirled open here, okay? Collapse that. And every time you run the action, you're going to get a different result. So if you want to run the action again, okay, and it's very important that you actually close down your photo and reopen it. So if I just delete the tattoo folder here, okay, what I would want to do is just close this down and reopen the photo and just start again, okay? So undo that. Alright, so let's go inside the tattoo. I'm just going to collapse the actions panel. We'll come back to this action here shortly. So we're inside the layer panel here, and I'm just going to collapse these folders here. Alright, so the first folder that you want to check out is the image toning here in yellow, okay? So by default, what I've tried to do is apply an amount of shadow detail that will sort of help bring out your subject a bit better, which is this layer here. I've got called Tattoo Design, and in brackets with default shading. If I turn this layer off, it takes away the shading, and then we're left with just this layer here, Tattoo Design, no shading. So this one here applies the default shading. Now inside this folder here, image toner, is where you can add different levels of shading to help bring out the details a bit more in your subject. So if you open this folder, okay, there's 10 layers in yellow. Tone area 1 through to 10. By default, they're all turned off. So when you turn it on, what it will do, it'll apply a level of toning, okay, a different level of toning to areas of your photo. And the way I've set it up is that tone area 1 will target the darker areas of your original photo, okay? So you can see that it's applying shading to the sunglasses and the pipe here, because it's found that those are the dark areas in your original photo. And it goes all the way down here to the brightest areas of the photo, which is tone area 10. And so the way you want to use these layers is just turn them on, okay, and you can see where it applies a different level of detail. All right. So let's just say that I want to apply a level of that level of detail just to the glasses and the pipe here. All right. So I can just turn on tone area 2. I've also got in brackets here adjust opacity. Okay. So you might be thinking, you know, that it's filled it in with a solid color, but it's too solid. I want it to be a bit more transparent so I can see some of this texture detail below. So what you want to do is just select the layer, and I'm just going to click on this word opacity here. Click, hold, and drag to the left. That will decrease the layer opacity. Okay, so 100, 0. So I can just bring that down a bit. Okay. And what you also want to do, you'll notice that on all these layers are these masks, these white boxes. So if you select these masks and brush black onto them, it will hide whatever is on that layer. So if I turn that layer on and off, I can see that it's applied some texture at the top here, okay, and you know, the tonal area here. So if I just select that mask and hit B, okay, that'll activate the brush tool. Now I've already selected a textured brush for you, okay. If you right click to bring out the brushes panel, it is the tattoo brush here, which is already selected for you. You can reselect that if you want, okay. And you can use the left and right square brackets to adjust the brush size. So if you select the mask, make sure black is your active color, okay? You can flick between black and white by hitting X. So black is active. I can start brushing that away. So any details on that one specific layer, okay, you can hide that just through brushing onto the mask. So let's say I didn't want this shadow detail here, I can brush that away. Okay, so you can really fine tune where you want the shading. Alright, so let's leave on tone area 1. Okay, often what I like to do is I might turn on the first 3, okay, and I'll just lower the opacity for those layers. Okay, because as we go down here, we're targeting the brighter areas of our photo, so naturally you don't want, you want these layers here to be a bit more transparent. Alright, so let's just say I want to use these 4 layers here, okay, and I want to quickly remove this area up the top here and this texture here. So what I often like to do is just shift select those layers, okay, Control or Command G, group them, and I'll apply a mask. So now when I brush black onto this mask, I can hide whatever is inside this folder. So I've got all these details inside this folder, so I'll just select the mask, hit B, make sure black is active, and I can brush this away. Okay. Now there might be times where you know, you've got a few layers turned on, you group them, you brush into masks, and you know, you look at your design and you realize, oh, okay, I don't want this little bit of red here. Okay, so you can firstly just go inside, you know, a folder or turn on and off layers to identify where it is. So it's that one there, and I can brush into the mask. But another quick way to quickly erase this area is just to select the mask in the image toning folder. Okay, because this mask controls everything within this folder. All right. So if I select that mask and start brushing, okay, make sure black's active, I can just brush that away. So you can see I can just brush all those toning layers away because they are within this folder. Now, if you also take notice of the mask here, okay, if I hold down Alt and click on that mask, we can view the mask. So what I've done by default, I've restricted the area where these tone areas will appear, and that is based on the area that you painted onto during the action playback, where the action stopped and you brushed away. Okay, so the area in white is where I've restricted it to. Okay, so if I hold down Shift to disable that mask, you'll see, and I now turn on these layers, you can see that it's identifying and filling in areas outside of our area of interest that we brushed onto. Okay, so it's filling in the background there. So that just restricts the area where these tone layers can appear. Okay, so you can add to this area if you want, just by brushing white. Okay, but in the next example, I'll go over a bit more how we can use that. Next, let's talk about image color. So this folder here in purple is the overall color of your design. If you want to quickly convert it to black and white, you just need to turn off the visibility for that folder. Now, if you're working in black and white, you might want to experiment a bit more with adjusting the tone areas of your design. Okay, so you can see if I increase that, it can help bring a bit more definition into your subject. Okay, but you don't have to, just experiment with those. So let's turn this back on. We'll go inside, and there's 4 layers inside the image color folder. Okay, now if you want to play around with the shadow color, you can see by default that I've applied a reddish tone to the darker areas of your design. So you want to change that, you double click on this box, okay, and you can just cycle through the different colors here. So I'm just going to go for like a dark purple. What I might also do is go back into the image toning folder, and I'm going to just grab this tone area 1, which was pretty much the sunglasses. I'm just going to increase that back to 100%. Okay, sort of just fills that in, that area there. All right, it's good. So adjust colors is just a simple adjustment layer just to help fine tune the colors of your design. You can target different tonal ranges, so you've got shadows, midtones, and highlights. So if I wanted to add some different colors into the shadows, I could select that and just play around with these handles here to add in different colors. All right, undo that. Excuse me. Okay, so let's go down to these 2 layers here. So photo colors option 1 and 2. Photo colors option 1 will overlay the original colors. Let's turn this off a sec. It will overlay the original colors of your photo over the design. Now, by default, the opacity is at 70%. Okay, and you can see I've got in brackets here opacity. That's just reminding you to play around with the layer, with the layer's opacity. So if you just want a subtle hint of color, you might want to change that to 40% or less. Okay, you can also just hit the numbers on the keyboard. Okay, so if I hit 3, that'll change the opacity to 30%, 8, 80%. Okay, now this layer here, photo colors option 2. What this one does, it will add a bit more contrast into your design. So you can see if I drag this to 0%, then 100. Okay, so that can also help bring in a lot of extra tonal definition. Okay, so you definitely want to play around with the opacity of that one. Okay, and don't forget you've always got these masks to adjust where you want that layer to appear or not. So let's just say I want to create a blend between his head being in color and here not being in color. I can select the image color mask. Okay, and if I just brush black into that, I can start removing color from that area. So next, let's talk about these 2 layers here. Right, so I'm just going to collapse this, and what I might actually do is turn off the image color folder here and the toning folder. So we've got these 2 layers here, which I briefly explained at the start. So this one here, again, just applies a default amount of shading to your subject. So you can see, let's try to apply shading here because it's found that these are the dark areas in your photo, the sunglasses and the pipe. So if you turn this off, all you're left with pretty much is the texture. There's no shading. So what you can also do is you can use the mask to brush away any areas of shading that you don't want, which will just fall back down onto this layer here with no shading. Okay, so experiment with that. Next, let's jump up to these layers here. So I'll turn these back on. Okay, so overall brightness, you can just double click on this layer here and play around with these handles here to adjust the overall brightness of your design. Okay, pretty simple. Overall color saturation, you can double click on this one, increase the saturation here. Okay. Now I've got this layer here, clean up, and I've got in brackets brush mask. Right, so you might have run the action, you've got to your result, and you might see some of these lines around the edges that you don't want. Okay, so what you want to do is just select the mask. Now if you hit B, activate the brush tool, right click. I've got this brush here called Tattoo Edge Cleanup. So if you click on that one, okay, so this is a good brush just to brush away any of these extra details that you don't want. So make sure the mask is selected, okay. Now you can see by default all it is a white layer and it's completely hidden because the mask is black. So if I just disable this mask, all it is a white layer. So what we want to do is reveal what's in this layer. So we want to brush white. So brushing black will hide it, brush white will reveal it. So B, okay, brush tool. Now currently black is active, I'm going to hit X, flip that to white. So now when I start brushing, okay, I can brush away any of these details that I don't want. Okay, and you might not want to use this, but there might be cases where you've run the action and there's just this one little bit of annoying detail that you just don't want, and so you just brush that away. Alright. So overall color tints, if you double click on this layer, you can pretty much apply a background color. Right? And what you will notice is that the color stops at this edge here where all this texture is. Okay? And again, that texture comes from the area where we applied, where we brushed over our photo during the action. Okay? You know that? So you can see that same mask is applied on this layer. If I go inside here, you can see that what I'm doing here is that I'm restricting it from entering our area of interest, which is in black, okay? Because I don't want it to go into that area. It can go everywhere else, but not in our area of interest. So if I want to disable this, if I want this pink color to overlay over everything, I can just hold down Shift and click on the mask, so that will disable it. So now I can play around with these colors and it will affect the entire design. Now what you can also do is just select the mask, okay, hit B, right? I'm going to select the tattoo brush and make sure white is active, okay, because I want to reveal more of this layer. And I can just brush onto the edge here and just get it to overlap where I want, okay. Alright, so that's how you do that. Pretty simple. Oops, undo that. So next, let's talk about transparency and how to get your design on a transparent background. So there's two ways we can do this, and it's going to depend on what kind of outcome you're looking for. So firstly, let's open the actions panel, okay? And let's just click on the action here, create transparent backgrounds. Click play. And so what you'll notice is that your design is now on a transparent background. Right? So if I just create a layer here and fill this red, okay, what you'll notice is that our design is on a transparent background, but it's stopped at where the texture is. Okay, now you might not want the texture, or you may want it. So this is where there's two different methods, and one method needs to be manual. You'll need to do it. This method is automatic. You can just click on the create transparent background and it's done. Okay, so let's just say that I don't want this texture. I just want it to export, you know, pretty much where the design stops with these lines. Okay, so I'm going to delete that, and actually first, before I do that, I'll explain to you how I've set this up. Okay, this action here. So I'll delete that. So what I've done basically is, firstly, I've hidden the background layer. Okay, so if I leave that on, you'll see that's kept our original photo, so I want to get rid of that, so that's hidden. Okay. Next, what I've done, I've simply applied that same mask, our area of interest, to the overall tattoo, excuse me, the overall tattoo folder. Okay. So the reason why I put the mask on that is that all I want to show is the area in white. Everything else can disappear. Okay. So everything in black is going to fall down onto the layer below, and there's nothing there, so it's going to be transparent. All right. So I'm just going to delete that layer mask, and I'll talk to you about the other method. All right. So the first thing you want to do, okay, we're not interested in the background color because we want to export this on a transparent background. We just want our design. So firstly, you want to just flip this to white, okay? And what you want to do is hit W. That'll activate the Magic Wand tool. Just make sure the Magic Wand tool is selected and not the Quick Selection tool. Magic Wand, okay? And hit W and make sure that Sample All Layers is selected, okay? And you want to set a pretty high tolerance for this. You can experiment with this if you want. So what you want to do is just click around the edge of your design, okay? And what you'll notice is create a selection around the edge. Right, I'm just going to collapse this. And so what we want to do now is really refine this selection. Make sure that it's selecting all the right areas. So what you can do is once you've made the selection, go to select the mask, and it'll bring up this panel here. So currently, the way we've done this is that everything in red is going to be removed, and we're only going to keep the areas in white, but we want to reverse that, okay? So what you can do is just click on this invert button here, and that will invert our selection. So now we're going to keep everything that's not in red, okay? Now, you can see it's done quite a good job of removing any extra details around here, and it's really selected the details that we want. Okay. Now you can refine this selection a bit further. You can click Smart Radius here, and you can play around with the radius here. Okay. You can also grab this tool here, Refine Edge Brush tool. Select that. Make sure Sample All Layers is clicked, and you can start brushing onto areas where you just might want to remove some detail. Okay. So you can see there how if I brush into that spot there, it's going to remove the white and just keep our black outline. Okay. Alright, so when you're done, okay, when you've played around in here, click OK. And all that's done at the moment is created a selection. It's refined our selection. So now it's ready to apply to a mask. So we can now select our tattoo folder. Okay. Now, if there is a mask on the layer, if there's a mask already on that folder, tattoo, right click on the mask and delete it. Okay, so there's no mask. So now, all you need to do is click on this icon here, right, and that will apply that selection as a mask to our entire tattoo folder. So now I can just turn off the background layer, and we're just left with our design. Right, so now you can export that as a PNG with a transparent background. Alright, let's move on to the next example. So I'm just going to close that down and drag in the next image. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to check is the size of my photo. So I'm going to go to image size, and it's pretty good size at the moment. I might just bump this up even more, get a bit more detail into it. Okay, so firstly, let's load up the actions panel. Okay, and I'm just going to select the tattoo action and click play. And I'll just wait around for that first pop-up. Okay, I'm going to click stop here or hit enter. And I'm going to zoom in a bit. And I'm going to start brushing over my design. Okay. So just remember that you don't need to use your entire photo. Okay, you can just brush whatever area you want. Okay. But you're also open to using your entire photo. You just have to click and drag over your entire image. Just keeping in mind that you don't want to keep the pressure on one area for too long. Okay. Also, just pay attention to these flourishes and making sure that that's the end result that you want. You want those extra details there. Okay. So I'm going to zoom out a bit and take a look. So I kind of want this image to be fairly balanced, so I might just brush a bit more there, maybe a little bit there. Try to close off those loops there. And I might do an extra brush there, an extra brush there. Alright, that's looking pretty good. I might just close off this loop here. Okay. And just a reminder, you can experiment with these numbers here. Area will just shrink the area where it's going to apply the texture. Okay. Tolerance, you'll get much finer details by dragging that to 0. Okay, that's looking good. Click play on the action and I'll just fast forward to the result. Alright, the action is done, and looking at this, this is a good example of a time where I would run the action again to really refine the area that I brush over. Because if I zoom out here, I can see that it's a little bit unbalanced on this side here. You can see his arms sort of chopped off. It's because I haven't brushed onto that area, okay, whereas I have here, okay, and I really wanted this to be more balanced, but let's just keep going with the tutorial. It's just a good example of where, you know, I'll redo the action and focus a bit more on where I'm brushing. Alright, let's close this. Let's jump straight into the image toning folder and let's take a look at how these layers affect the result. Alright, so this one here, I'm noticing straight away that I like what it's doing to his hair and neck, but not so much adding these extra details around here. So I'm going to select the mask, hit B, make sure black is active, and I'm just going to brush away those details. Okay. Alright, let's try the next one. Just keep going down the list. Okay, what I'm looking at here is his eyes, nose and mouth with which layer was it? This one here. I'm just trying to decide if it looks better with that extra little bit of darkness to it. Don't think it needs it, so let's keep going. Okay, I might. Now, what you can also do, another quick tip with the mask is that, let's just say that I'm only really looking at his face at the moment. I'm not interested in all this other stuff. What I can quickly do is select the mask and hit Control or Command I. So that'll flip it from white to black, so it hides everything. So now what I can do is just brush on in white, because I want to reveal this layer now, just that area that I'm interested in, which is around here. Okay, so turn it layer on and off. Now I can play around with opacity to see. Maybe it just needs just a little bit of shading like that. Alright, let's try the next layer. Okay, that looks actually pretty cool what it's doing to his face, okay? But I might just turn down the opacity so it just turns into more of a toning layer, just like that. Okay, so turn it on and off. So that looks pretty cool. Let's try the next one. I'm just looking around. No, I think we'll leave that one off. And we'll leave that one off. Okay. Let's just quickly change the color here. That'll do. And maybe try a bit of a grey background. And I'm going to select the mask, hit B, make sure white is active. Because I want to reveal, I just want to brush into this black area a bit so the grey sort of cuts into the design. Okay. Alright, so I'm happy with that. Let's check out the before and after. So here's the original photo and here's the action. Alright, let's move on to the next next part of the tutorial, and we're going to take this photo here and recreate this. Okay, so close this down, drag over this photo. Alright, I'm going to check the image size straight away, and let's just say turn this to 4000. Okay, going to play the action and wait for the step to brush over our photo. Alright, hit enter or stop and start brushing. Okay, just again another reminder not to brush too heavily onto one area, and to, if you want, close off loops like this area here, so you see how that's quite open, and then when I click in there you get a lot of smaller loops. That's good. In the end result, it's going to create a lot of finer shapes, but it's also good to experiment with varying the distance of these shapes, so might just leave it. Okay, I'm going to click play and I'll fast forward to the result. Alright, so the aim with this design is to turn it into this. Alright, so let's do that. Let's close the actions panel. And what I'm going to do straight away is just turn off the image color because we're not interested in that. Right? And let's start turning on layers in the image toning folder and see what happens. So as you can see, as I turn it on, we're starting to shade in our design. But what you'll notice straight away is that it's not, these layers, these tonal areas are not exceeding our area of interest. It's because it's limited by the mask on the image toning folder, okay? See it there? So what I want to do here is hold down Shift, click on it to disable it. So now our tonal areas are spreading across the entire photo. So all I'm doing here is I'm just turning these on one by one, and what I'm just looking at is my subject here. Okay, I'm just interested in that. So that's pretty much the level of detail I want right here, but we're left with all this white texture in the background. So what we want to do is just up the top here is create a new layer, Control Shift N or Command Shift N, and call it anything. Okay, and we want to fill it black. So make hit X, make black your foreground color. Now if you hold down, if you hit Shift Backspace, okay, you get options to fill a layer or a selection. Okay, so you can choose foreground color, background color, pattern, black or white. So you can just go foreground color. Okay, so what I've done is just created a black layer, pretty simple. But now I only want to brush on where I want this black to appear. Okay, now by default when you apply a mask like this, it applies it white. If you hold down Alt or Option and then click on it, it'll apply it black. So by default, it's hidden everything. So now when I hit B, make sure white is active, I can start brushing this white area away. Just like that. Okay. Quickly get rid of all this. Okay, I might also get rid of this area here. Okay. So left and right square brackets to adjust brush size. And I'm just going to double click on the overall brightness and just turn that up a bit. Alright, so that's all we need to do. So here's the before and here's the after. Alright, let's move on to the last example. Let's open up the photo. Alright, again, going to check my image size. It's a good size there, so I'm going to click OK. Actions panel, click play, and I'll just wait for the first step. Alright, hit enter. So this time what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drag this tolerance down to 0 so we get a lot of fine detail in the result. So, okay, so all I'm doing is clicking, holding and dragging around my design here. Alright. Okay, pretty happy with that. So let's close off some of these loops. Alright, I'm going to click play and I'll jump to the result. Alright, the action's done, and so the aim with this design is to get it to look like this. Alright, so let's jump into the layers here. And the first thing I want to do again is just disable the mask on the image toning layer, because I want these image toning folder, sorry, because I want these layers to exceed our area of interest here. So I'm going to start turning on these layers, see what happens. Starts filling our background, which is good. Okay, turn on this one. Now what I might do is stop here and I might adjust the opacity of this layer to about 40% or somewhere around there, So I like the shading just on his forearms here. Okay, if I go from 100 back down to 30, you can see the shading. But what I also like with this layer at 100% is the way it shades in, fills in this area here, and his eyes. Okay, so I go from 30 to 100. I'm just undoing, redoing that so you can see. So what I want to do, I want to keep the forearms at 30% and the rest at 100. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to duplicate this layer by holding down Alt or Option, dragging up. So on this layer, I'm going to turn it to 100%. Okay, but I don't want it to feel 100% on his forearms. So I'm going to select the mask, hit B, make sure black is active. So I'm going to hit X. And I'm just going to start brushing over his forearms there. That's it. Okay, so let's keep going down and see what happens. So with this one, I might actually just try just adjusting the opacity, so it just turns into a toning layer. So quite like that. Let's keep going. So I think I might stop there. I think that's looking pretty good. Now there's also this patch here that I don't want. Okay, so I can identify what layer that's coming from. Okay, which I think is this one here. But another quick method to fix this is just to create a new layer. So Control Shift N or Command Shift N, and to fill that layer with our foreground color, you can hold down Shift Backspace, and you can select. You can actually either select black or white here, or the foreground color. So let's go the foreground color is black. Now I want to hide all this. So again, if you hold down Alt while clicking on the mask, it will apply a black mask by default, which hides everything. Now, what you'll notice here, if I hit B and start brushing white, okay, because it's a black layer, it's basically just revealing black, but I want it to actually be that red color. So the reason why it's not red is because it's above our image color folder, okay? So the image color folder will color anything below it, okay? So currently it's above it, so if we move it below it, it will adopt that red tone. All right, so getting there. I'm just going to open up the reference here. So it's not, it's a bit more of a softer red. So I'm going to do something like that. I might play around with the opacity of this layer, see what happens. Okay. It's looking pretty good. Let's try the overall color saturation. Don't think it needs it. Alright, and I'm done. So that quick. So here's the original. There's the result. Actually, what I might quickly do is fix up the eyes here. I just want to fill that area in with this red tone as well. So I'm going to go to my black layer here. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hit B, use the left and right square brackets to adjust the brush size. Make sure the mask is selected, make sure white is active because I want to reveal the layer. I'm just going to brush that away, probably this here as well. Alright. So another thing you might want to play around with is smoothing out these lines with the oil paint filter. Okay, smoothing out your result. So to do that, what you want to do is just select the very top layer, whatever it is for you, and hit Control Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E. And what that will do is create a stamp visible of your design. Okay, so if I move that layer around, so all it is a snapshot of everything that you see put onto one layer. So what you can do now is go to Filter, Stylize, Oil Paint, and you can play around with these settings here. Okay, so if I click OK and I zoom in and I undo and redo, Control Z, you can see that it's smoothed out those details much more. Okay. So it's just something to experiment with to see if you like that result better. Excuse me. So that oil paint filter is for CS6 and above, I believe, under stylized oil paint. Just make sure you merge onto one layer first. Okay, so if you decide you don't like it, you can delete that layer. Okay, and you're back with your original layers and your original design. Alright guys, so that's it. If you're having issues with the action, just check back on the start of this tutorial. Make sure that your file is all set up correctly. I'll also put a link down to my support page below, so you can check that out if you're still having issues. Okay. Also put a link down to my portfolio below. I have over 100 of these different effects for you to play around with. You can experiment with combining different actions as well to create additional effects. Okay, but if not, have a good time using the action, and I'll see you soon.